Okay, we start with the executive summary. As we know, this study is talking about the fourth industry revolutions and its impact on the labor market. So, first of all, the industry production started in 18th century. And from this century, the economy has serious changes. So the Industry 4 has transformed the production from manual labor to use the machines, and this caused the production cost to decrease and the product quantity and quality to increase. So in this study, we're gonna see the evaluation of the effects of fourth industrial revolutions over the labor markets, as we mentioned recently. In 2011, the term Industry 4th was first used at the Hanover Fair, and 1 year later, the proposal of this industry presented to the German federal government. This study consists of three parts: first, second, and third sections. So we're gonna start with the first and second section, which is related to the historical development process of Industry 4th and the conceptual framework and characteristics of Industry 4th that discussed consequentially. And in the third section, the possible effects of Industry 4 over the labor life is being evaluated. So from this study, we can conclude that there are most important elements that distinguish Industry 4 from other industrial revolutions. For example, like data, information, and operations, and also sensors. So when we combine these four, unskilled labor force are eliminated from the market, and we gonna replace it by robots.
My name is Narfadila binti Nasi, so I'm going to explain the introduction of the research interest of the paper and the main question addressed in this research paper. So the first one, the introduction, is the research consists of the three parts. So the first one is the historical development. So in terms of the social evolution, there are 5 different societies are mentioned within the history of the mankind. These are respectively the hunting society, the agriculture society, the industrial society, and the information society, and the super smart society, which is the society 5.0, which is emerging with the industry 4.0. So the first development that can be defined as the breaking point in the human history. So the first industrial revolution was first introduced in 1712 by the steam engine invented by the Thomas Newcomen, and the steam engine development in the 1760s began to show its effect radically by the mechanization of the weaving looms in England. So the concept of industry is constantly changing due to the method used in the production and the management of the production process. So the second industrial revolution referred to economics, commercial, and the social changes in the period 1870 until 1914. So the decisive factors of the second industrial revolution are the development of the railway due to the technological transformations. Hence, toward the end of the 19th, the development of electricity, electronics, and the computer system was called the informatic revolution and opened of the doors of the third industrial revolution. So the basis for the development and the prosperity throughout this stage is capital accumulation, the allocation of the capital throughout the inclusive institution. So from this perspective, the Industry 4.0 will be effective in society by the 3 innovation areas. So these innovations are strengthening the innovation, sustainable innovation, and efficiency innovation. So in the 21st century, with the combination of the communication, computer, and the internet technologies, Industry 4.0, also known as the fourth industrial revolution, took its place in the society. In this period, the need of the arm and the muscle power, which are the rational labor force, almost disappeared, and the machines started to manage both themselves and the production processes on their own. So the second one is the conceptual framework and the properties of Industrial 4.0. So the Industry 4.0 is a collective whole of the concept of the technology and the value chains organization. So it is based on the concept of the cyber physical system, Internet of Things, and the Internet of Service. So the fourth industrial revolution began with this century is rising over the promise of the digital revolution. So it is being characterized with a faster, cheaper, and a more common mobile internet, cheaper and smaller and more powerful sensor, and the artificial intelligence leading to the learning machine. So the Industry 4.0 is a collective whole of the concept of the technology and value chain organization. It is based on the concept of the cyber physical system, Internet of Things, and Internet of Services. This structure makes a great contribution to the formation of intelligent factor vision. So the Industry 4.0 generally consists of the following three structures, which is the Internet of Things, Internet of Services, cyber physical system. And the last one, the research interest of the paper is the industry and the industrial relationship, which is the reflection of the technological development over the employment and the labor. So the Industry 4.0 is a transformation based on the concept minimization and the productivity increase in the production line. So the development of the robots will replace the human worker and create unemployment. So the Industry 4.0 is a transformation based on the cost minimization and the productivity increase in the production line. So the facts that the conventional milling is replaced by the intelligent factories make the perception that the structural characteristics of the labor market is set to change. So one of the most important concerns about the employment is the concern that in the future robots can replace the human workers and the unemployment may increase. However, rather than saying the producing robot will result with the unemployment, the labor force needs to align itself as to fit the needs of the new era and to canalize its potential.
Now we move to the significance of a study. This study explained the Industry 4 will lead to technological unemployment via changing the structure of employment because we replace the labor with robots. And today, the Internet of Objects, the industry networks, the cyber physical systems, and the incorporations of robotic technologies into the productions has brought the Industry 4th age into the stage. So and the fourth industrial revolutions has created a new production model where robots are effectively used in production, as we mentioned recently. So Industry 4 will lead to critical transformation in labor relations, not only in industrialization country but also in the other countries as well. So in this study also we see the historical development and conceptual framework of the Industry 4th, and which is examined, and the first stage and the second stage, a quantitative research is being executed regarding the preparedness and awareness of employees and managers in Turkey towards the transformations that will occur with Industry 4. So lastly, Industry 4 is creating the factories of the future where the production lines are to be connected with each other via sensor systems, as we mentioned before, instant data exchange and takes place, and thus software algorithm and an entire system to be converted into instant reports.
The main question addressed and the issue highlighted in this research paper is the first one, the historical development process of Industry 4.0, and the second one is the conceptual framework and the characteristic of Industry 4.0, and the last main question addressed in this research paper is the effect of Industry 4.0 over the labor relations.
We move on to the data and methodology. So the background is between 18th century until 21st century, same as the time period. So the method issues is qualitative method and the data is secondary method. Thank you.
So now we will move on to conclusion and recommendation. Intermediate conclusions, also known as subsidiary conclusion or sub-conclusion. So the first intermediate conclusion is from a paragraph that explains how within fourth industrial revolution, job scope or professions will change. So the conclusion that arises from that paragraph is that in the fourth industrial revolution, it is inevitable that some professions end and some professions change. And so the next intermediate conclusion is it is expected that the fourth industrial revolution will facilitate a lot of work in the production and service sector with the use of high technology. So this intermediate conclusion is from a paragraph that explains how in the fourth industrial revolution will make jobs easier and therefore will facilitate work in production and service sector. The third intermediate conclusion will be the innovations introduced by Industry 4.0 are not only in terms of professions, worker and employer will also change their relationship. The fourth intermediate conclusion is another area which will be tremendously affected from the change of industry will be trade unions. And the fifth intermediate conclusions, Industry 4.0 is expected to have more impact in developing countries. Now we will move on to the main conclusion. So the main conclusion is the conclusion that sums up the whole article. So the main conclusion is Industry 4.0 will lead to critical transformations in terms of industrial relations and labour life, not only in industrialized countries but also in newly industrialized countries. So the main conclusion sums up the whole article. It also sums up all of the intermediate conclusions. So all of the intermediate conclusions have premises that supported it, and then the intermediate conclusions support the main conclusion. So now we're moving on to the recommendation. So what I think I could recommend from this article is that the author should include more statistics to support his writing. This is because that the author explains his writing mostly based on descriptive and therefore there is a lack of statistics or numbers that will strengthen his writing or will make as a proof of evidence to support his writing. So now we move on to question 2. So what the first critiques about this article is I agree with the author that Industry 4.0 will facilitate for production. Automation and AI that drives Industry 4.0 can increase the speed of innovation and production processes. It minimizes the cost of production and also increase the productivity of the production line. So basically I agree with the author when the author says the Industry 4.0 will facilitate production, because with innovation, with automation, we can minimize the cost of production as productivity increases. Alright, so for the second critiques, I also agree with the author that Industry 4.0 will cause some professions to change, change in professions. So this is because that based on my research, jobs that require repetitive tasks, such as those in the production line, can be done by robots and AI and therefore can be replaced. However, professions that require technical skills, such as coding or software programming, or those that require skills with human characteristics and abilities, will emerge or grow as it cannot be replaced by the robots or the AI. And finally, I also agree with the author that Industry 4.0 will have a huge impact on developing countries in particular. This is because developing countries are the places where concentration of low-paid jobs is most likely. Low-paid jobs are jobs that require minimal skills and is often categorized as routine jobs. Since automation will replace these routine jobs, most jobs in the developing countries will be lost. So, in a nutshell, this third critic says that I agree with the author that Industry 4.0 will have a huge impact on developing countries in particular compared to the developed countries. It's because the developing countries are where the concentration of low-paid jobs is most likely.